What's going on, y'all? We are back here at Mile High Sports. This is your boy Swipa here with Ryan Blackburn, aka Ryan Chartburn, and we're here to talk about, man, there are some really good teams in the Western Conference, and your Denver Nuggets coming off of another win. They're now 16-4 since the All-Star break, and they have looked dynamite at times, not so great at times, but for the most part, Ryan, they've been excellent. And as we're looking at the landscape of the Western Conference, you got the Wolves, you got the Suns, you got the Thunder, you got the Mavs and the Pelicans and the Clippers and the Kings, and you got all these teams, the Lakers. There are so many good teams in the Western Conference that are all kind of vying from the 6 to 10 spot. Now we have a battle 1 to 3, and we got a battle from 4 to 5 possibly at this point. So when you look at the Western Conference, who are the three biggest threats to the Denver Nuggets for you? And you can start off with one if you want to hear. Who do you think the biggest threat is to the Denver Nuggets this year?
Yeah, so I after watching some of the ways that the Timberwolves played against Denver in that last game, I think that they're probably the biggest threat. I think that the Minnesota Timberwolves are the team that, if there was one team to beat the Denver Nuggets in a playoff series in the Western Conference this year, I think they are the team. I think they have the talent. I think they have the defense. I think they have the personnel. And I think they've got a lot of interesting players on that roster that could really give Denver some problems. We looked at last year's roster and last year's team, and Denver obviously wins the championship. They win that series in 5 games against the T-Wolves, but they didn't have Jaden McDaniels, who's their best perimeter defender. They didn't have Naz Reid, who is a dynamic big man. And like, they just were less connected. If I had to put another thing on it, like, they're just a less connected team that didn't really know who they are. Now they do, and Rudy Gobert just looks like a different player for them. So it just would not surprise me if they were the team that challenged Denver the most and maybe even won a series against the defending champs.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I have the Thunder ahead of them, actually. And I think at this point, I'm going to say it like this. I think I came into the year saying it would be the Phoenix Suns, number one. I'm going to keep them there. The reason being is just their shot making. They're not consistent. They don't close 4 quarters well. They don't get up a lot of 3-pointers. But I think a team that has the veteran savvy, they have the top end talent with Katie and Booker, and then on the other end, Yusuf Nurkic will try to make life as difficult as possible for Nikola Jokic. And I've long said this, that the way you beat Denver is not with elite defense, it's with elite shot making. You have to make them pay with shooters and with pull-up shooters. And, you know, we'll get to Minnesota for me in a second here, but if you're going to beat Denver, you're going to have a couple of those guys that are able to pull up at a high level versus contested shots, hit contested twos, and open 3-pointers. And for me, Minnesota, as great as they are defensively, you know, they only have one shooter from a pull-up range that really is a legitimate threat, and that's Mike Conley. And so I think that for me, I think Minnesota's defense is terrific. Their physicality will be important. But if you're telling me the Nuggets had to solve a defense over the course of a series, I would trust them to be able to do that. But if you're able to combine high-level defense with tenacity and expertise with shot making, that would make them a little bit better. That's why I think they're a little bit below for me than they are for you.
I understand that. I do understand that perspective. I kind of go the other way on it, though. When I think of Denver, I think of them as being an unstoppable offense, a team that solves problems. But I do think that you have to have a baseline defense against them where you have to make them work for everything that they get. And the harder that Denver has to work on the offensive end, the less they have to give oftentimes on the defensive end. And they're trying to put out better and better offensive lineups. Maybe they're playing Michael Porter at the 4 a little bit more, spacing things out. Maybe they're playing less defensive guys within their rotation in order to score. And I think that compromises them. If you can find ways to challenge them and Denver scoring, like, that's because that's their plan. That's always what they're able to rely upon. And maybe Nikola Jokic is just good enough, and maybe Jamal Murray is just good enough within his role that Denver just can't really be challenged in that way. But then, because nobody was really able to stop Denver last year. And that to me is the big reason why you have to put together a defense that is capable of doing so. And that's why I have Minnesota up there. But I understand the other point of it.
Right. So for number 2 for me, it's actually the OKC Thunder.
Yeah.
And the reason is they have the combination of the defense. They don't have Rudy, but I think Chet, Lou Dort, they have the connected pieces. J-Dub, Jalen Williams, a good defender. And even Casey Walls, all the bench is a good defender.
Oh, yeah.
So I think all that put together is they probably would be second best for me because they have a bunch of shot makers. They're just really young. J-Dub's going to be an all-NBA player one day. People just need to go ahead and wake up to that reality now. He's a really good player. He has all the offensive tools you want. He's a great pull-up shooter. He's not afraid of anything, and he's huge. And then Shea. So I think for me, and then Chet, stretch big, good interior presence. I think they actually have a better skill set that would challenge Denver down the stretch. And then I'll say for me, you can give me 2 and 3 because I think since you already said the Timberwolves, I'm actually going to put the Timberwolves at 3. I truly just do not believe in their offense down the stretch. And we saw them versus the Bulls. They just don't have the shooters and the shot makers that you would want. I think they'll take advantage of a lot of those things. And I think Denver, they settle in on Ant, and they say, all right, go ahead, beat us from as a jump shooting team. Then I just don't think they have the guys to do that 4 times in a series. But the Thunder, on the other hand, Shea, Jada, Kaysen, they got a bunch of dudes that if you ask them to shoot you out the gym, they absolutely can do it.
Yeah, interesting you say that. I think I have the Suns 2 and I have the Thunder 3, but I could justify flipping those for sure. We just watched Shea hit a big time game winner against the New York Knicks, just looking like a dynamic MVP candidate that he is. And he is just tremendous, man. And the way that he can get to his spots at just about everybody in the NBA is really, really impressive. And if Denver doesn't have a solve for that, then they're going to be up a creek. That's going to be a big problem for them. I think that his game is going to translate really well to the playoffs. And you're going to get probably Aaron Gordon at times, but mostly KCP on the ball, trying to guard him and doing everything that you can to stop him. But they are crazy enough with their coverages and their offense and doing everything that they can to kind of muck up the game a little bit for a team like Denver. We've seen like OKC won that season series 3-1 against Denver, and I think there's a reason for that. They do present some issues for sure.
Yeah, I think the thing too is I just don't think in this NBA. I mean, otherwise we're talking about playoff defenses. I think Miami is probably the biggest one that in terms of defense that actually showed Denver the most issues. They had a better
Yeah.
defense than anybody, but some of that was, Miami just had the ability to slow the game down. And I think the Wolves have it. But the thing is, the Wolves, they have physicality on their side versus almost anybody but Denver. Denver's not soft, and they're actually not afraid of the Wolves' physicality at all. But the difference is you try to get physical with Denver, they're going to outskill you. And I just don't think the Wolves yet have enough pieces to be able to truly thwart them. But, again, we're ranking by who we think would be the biggest threats. I'm going to keep the Suns there, just sticking to my preseason take. I'm then going to have OKC, and I'm going to have Minnesota.
Completely understandable. We should probably talk about the Suns a little bit. You mentioned their playmakers and their shot makers, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant going off the dribble. How worried are you about Bradley Beal as another layer to that? Because I'm not really worried. I just don't see the same dynamic scorer that he was.
Yeah, I think the issue with Bradley has regressed. He's had injuries as well. So there's just a couple things there. And he's small. He's not a big player.
Yeah.
So you put all that together, man. I just think that they're in a situation where I don't know if Bradley's going to be able to turn it on enough. But I think Katie Book with Grayson Allen, with Bradley, and then with having the players off the bench like Royce O'Neal, that's what I mean. That is all of the shooters all together.
There's no doubt about it. They've got a better mix than they did previously, where you could help off of guys like Josh Okogie, Keita Bates-Diop, and not even Keita Bates-Diop. It was like just a variety of different players that you felt okay that when they went with their defensive lineups, they just didn't really have the spacing necessary in order to make life easier for Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. But if those guys provide the effort and the play that they did against the Nuggets last year, it wouldn't surprise me if they give Denver more of a challenge. But in the end, like all of this conversation is just one of those things where I don't think any team is going to, like, teams will seriously challenge Denver, but I still don't think that Denver's going to lose. I still think that they are at the top of all of this, and it's fair for Nuggets fans to go into the playoffs with confidence, despite the fact that they had a couple losses here or there.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about Denver. It's like, I believe there are real reasons why you look at these teams and say they're real potential threats. But, I mean, right now, man, like, I think everybody knows that when the Nuggets turn it on, they're just at a different level. So go through your list again, and then I'll close out with mine.
Yeah, so I had the Timberwolves at 1. I had the Suns at 2, and I have the Thunder at 3. And if I had to throw a fourth on there, I'd probably say Dallas.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, Dallas for sure. So I have Suns, Thunder, Wolves. I'll also throw Dallas in there. Then I've had to do a sneak one that none of us mentioned. It probably still would be the Lakers, just because I think the Lakers are still going to have AD and Braun, and they're going to have shot making. They just don't have the defense. But if I had to say fifth on the list, it would be them. But look, y'all, that's going to do it here from Mile High Sports. This is Ryan Blackburn, aka Ryan Chartburn, your boy Swipa. Who do you think the three biggest threats are to the Denver Nuggets come playoff time that could give them a run for their money in the series? Let us know in the comment section. See y'all on the other side.